Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the Last Epoch dev stream. I am your host, Mike, and we are sharpening our knives because we're cutting it real fine. Hey there, Ashley Zora. Welcome to the stream. Usually I've got that turned off earlier. We're feeling good. Lizard, welcome with your raiding party. Come on down, hang out, pull up a seat by the fire. Glad to have you. A wild Mike appeared. Absent his usual yellow and black striped pattern, Mike has arrived on stream. We see him survey his prey. Yeah, I can't. See, Deadless, if I have the bee costume every time, it's not special anymore. But thank you very much for the 10 monthly sub. That is amazing. Glad to have you with us, as always. We've got our first character in Empowered Timelines on stream, I think. That's pretty cool. We're starting to struggle a little bit for damage, I think, but we'll get things sorted out. I'd like to refine a loot filter a little bit. And, you know, see if we can find some cool, fun stuff to play with, you know. As always, our all the money that comes in from streams, all of it goes directly to charity. This month our charity is St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital, all month long. We have the subs, those funny sounds, bits, donations, all of it goes straight there. Yeah. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. That's what I'm here for. Just put at Last Epoch Game in the question, and I will see it a lot easier. And that's what happens. See, I really need to do this. I need a keyboard for playing and a keyboard for programming, I think, so I can have the like raised keys. Because I have different keycaps for QWER that I can put on my keyboard, and I put them on as an experiment this week, and it sucks to type with still. I couldn't do it. I don't know what it was about it, but it just irked me. If you haven't seen yet, we have announced the full final version of the community-designed unique item, which is pretty cool that we got that. I'm pretty pumped on that being finished. It's the void volcanic orb, the VFX looks so cool. I actually hadn't seen it yet until the reveal today. Just been head down working on some multiplayer stuff lately, and I thought it looked really cool. If you haven't seen it yet, I should bring it up. Actually, I should bring it up on stream. Like the orb tails, the shrapnel pieces, they squiggle. Looks really cool. Dario, thank you much. 13th month resub. There we go. Another person over here. It's really cool to see. I really dislike the number 8690 is much better, right? I agree wholeheartedly. I think it's a way better number. I mean, really, anyone who releases a game with a version number 86, ugh, especially in that order, it's just, ugh, right? It's like, so 2005. If you can't make yourself laugh, who can you make laugh? If you can't laugh at yourself, who can you laugh at? I know. You've been saving Exalted Spears for it? Yeah. Good stuff. You'll be saving them for a while, I think. Unfortunately. Warlock, when it's ready. Are you the maker of this game? I am one of the people that works on this game. There's a lot of us now. A lot of people work very hard. I am been here not quite since the very beginning, but for a very long time. What was it? I can't remember the exact. I can pull up the exact date, but I'm one of the first few people, and yeah, I'm a senior developer in the game, so I spend most of my time with my head buried in code. I do a lot of design stuff too. It's a ton of fun. So yeah, as Reborn, if you is this live now? I'm not sure how new it is. Yeah, this is live right now. What I'm like I am live talking to you right now, and the version that I'm playing, if you see in the top left corner, it says beta 085F, which is our current build version. So this is exactly, I'm playing the exact same version of the game that is available on Steam right now. So nothing that I'm playing is new, but I've got some. I usually come to the party with a few little teasers, little spoilers, little extra info. I've got a couple things today too. Nothing groundbreaking, nothing monumentous, but you know, some fun stuff. If you do have any questions, and just anyone in general, put Last Epoch game in the question, and I'll be happy to answer it. But I can keep going on these. Is it difficult to code this game? Yeah, there's lots of really difficult things about it. I think that's true for pretty well any game. There's always things that crop up that you don't expect when you start, and there's you know, pesky bugs and edge cases that you wouldn't expect to be an issue, but they are, and you have to work out how to fix them. Yeah. Always tough stuff. How much is the game? It depends on your region. I want to say in the States at 35 USD. Should be able to link it. Should be a link in the description probably, actually. Steam link. Devs don't normally play their games. This is refreshing. Yeah, I mean, we've been doing this for quite a while now. We've been doing this for a little over a year. We actually briefly streamed like actual development. Like I would bring up the code and work live, which in hindsight was a mistake. That was my bad. But that was cool too. We like to. I do this weekly, 2 hours a week. You know, hang out, answer questions, get involved. Did I go to university to learn how to code games? I didn't go specifically to learn how to code games, but I do have a Bachelor of Computer Science from a university in Canada, where I live, and so like I went to university to learn how to just code in general, and I have applied that to making games. Because, really, that's the most fun type of coding, isn't it? For me, anyways. Any chance we'll see... Don't forget to put at Last Epoch game in the question if you want me to see it. I see another question here, though. Any chance we will see nodes like the old Werebear's staff spell damage to crit chance plus melee damage? I imagine... I think it was... it was like the node behind Wizenclaws, or Wizenclaws, however you want to pronounce it. I imagine they could eat up a lot of design space, but I loved the way it turned awkward affix combos into something great like melee crit plus spell chance. It's always possible that we see things like that. I agree with you. It was a lot of fun. Let's open the window here while I'm getting attacked. Not gonna open the window. Never mind. Let's open the door. Get a little air. Yeah. I also really like those nodes. There was a little bit of problems with it. We've been making some changes that I think will help with more interesting nodes like that in general. Not specifically exactly the same, but yeah. Let's see. How are the bear and saber-tooth work coming along the concept art look great? I'm not sure if they're into modeling and animations yet, but probably pretty good. My goal is to have that stuff ready for next patch, but I'm not sure if it'll be or not. You just never really know until it's done, right? Uh, da, 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 da. Oh, I'm right. Answered it. That's about how far we are. Okay, yeah. You guys are up to date on the Baron Sabretooth stuff. How much actual coding syntax and how much is using framework tool, for example, Unreal Engine, for example. Yeah. So we actually use Unity, not Unreal Engine, but it's the same. It's extremely similar tools. I would say that I spend, and it really depends on the day and what the task is to decide what it is. So like today I just started working on the integrating or actually splitting the character list for online and offline characters so that you could switch between them quickly and easily in our character select screen at start. And so the like first stage of that is mostly in editor using tools because they're tools we've created in the code previously. So I can take things we've used for other tab systems and it's a lot of like just drag and drop, plug and play stuff that because I built it specifically to work with our game, and so it'd be in situations that I knew and use cases that I knew we would need. But then I'm gonna have to link that into the what like the list gets populated. I would say it'll probably be about 50-50 in the end of like using editor stuff and code stuff for this particular task. But in general, I think it's probably closer to like 70-30 code, 70% code. But like, it really depends on the task. Some things are almost exclusively in the editor. How did I get it? Oh, hello, Mike. Are there plans for the near future to get more skill reworks? I tried to make it or decay work, for example, and it feels so dated. Yeah, I mean, you can ask that question until we're at the point of the game's development cycle where we're like looking to sunset the game in hopefully over a decade from now. The answer to that question will be yes. That's just the sort of thing that we like to do frequently. Updating old skills is a really important part of keeping the game fresh and fun. It also is less time intensive, less person hours, less work hours associated with it than creating something from scratch, generally speaking. And you can end up with actually better wins for it because if it's like you're reworking an old skill, you can make it essentially be a new skill as far as people are concerned because it's like you open up all sorts of new world of possibilities, you know, and getting rid of something that is old and crappy is almost more valuable than adding something new without reducing the total number of things. So yes, we really like doing reworks for older skills. I think Orb Decay is, on the whole of what's out there, lower on the list. There's a lot of skills I'm going to do first before that one. But yeah, I'm sure eventually it'll get a rework. These models are just so huge and they don't like to fall over. I find it hilarious. Alright. How did I get into games? I mean, okay, so the first video game I played was Donkey Kong on a Commodore 64. Which is, I think it's like 64 kilobytes was the total like hard drive, I think, or maybe that was memory. I don't know. It was I don't know what 64 stood for exactly, but it's a really, really brutally old computer. Like big floppy disks. I'm not talking A drive floppy disks. I'm talking like floppy disk, B drive floppy disks that are like bendy. And you play as Mario trying to jump up the Mario Jumpman Mario. What else we had Spelunker. There was a racing game. Breakout. I'm pretty sure it was Breakout. But like first games that I really got into were like NES Super Mario, Zelda 1, Duck Hunt, all the ones you would expect someone to play as a child growing up in the 90s. Whoa! This is they brought the heat here. I'm gonna have to be careful to survive. Let's go to the next question here. Warlock when it's ready. At or before launch. Alright. We just got something awesome and I can't look at it right now. Thank you very much, whoever that was. I appreciate you. Follow-up question. What do you think the most important useful thing you've learned in university? I think just being comfortable learning or reading code. And that's sort of a weird thing to do, but like being able to where you like look at some random code and it's like the comprehension aspect of it. Because there's so little that I don't know. There's so many courses that honestly I feel like I could have done without. Like half of the courses in a computer science program are math classes, and like another quarter of them are math classes in disguise. Oh, that's sorry, that's kind of loud, guys. One sec. Okay. I probably answered that. Does coding games pay well like other IT jobs? I'm not going to talk about pay stuff, sorry. For me, it was how to use Google effectively and how to read documentation. Yeah, that's probably a better answer. Yeah. A lot of it's Googling stuff. How much HTML do you do? None. 0. Oh, yeah, Kane afterwards, he does some, yeah. Which skills would you like to rework before Orb Decay, and why before Orb Decay? So I mean, summon Bear, summon Sabretooth, teleport. I'd like to dig into Snap Freeze a little bit more. Got a whole list. I should just go get the list. One second. I will tell you which ones I would like to rework first. There's a lot of autocast changes that I'd like to see, and those aren't really big reworks, but all the major autocast skills like Ring of Shields and Sigils of Hope, Holy Aura, a lot of Paladin skills. I'd like to dig into summon Bone Golem, summon Bear, and summon Sabretooth. I think all three of those could use some changes in their trees along with the visuals, which all the visuals are working on those. You guys have seen them all. Storm Totem, Volatile Reversal. I think could use. I think Volatile Reversal could use some really not dramatic changes, but some like core functionality changes that I think would be really healthy for the skill overall, make it a lot more interesting to play and a lot more welcoming to play. Right now it's kind of brutal. Even if you're like really good at it, you still make mistakes. Yeah, she thinks it's easy, but she doesn't have to do it. Tempest Strike I'd like to dig into a little bit more before that as well. I didn't actually find the list. I was just looking at a list of skills that we had, and I was pulling stuff off the top of my head. And why before Orb Decay? And why before Orb Decay? Just they're worse. That's a dead. I don't know why I'm going down there. They are in greater need of it. I don't know how to quantify that. With things like Bear, I can quantify that because trees shouldn't have nodes on. Like we have a few pretty strict rules on certain things for trees. So skill trees shouldn't have a node that has more than 5 points allocable to it. So I know Bear and Sabretooth both have nodes that can go over 5. So like right there, that puts them at the front of the pack immediately. And then on top of that, they just also have very few total points allocable to them, and very few total nodes. So just like from a numbers perspective, they're underdeveloped. And then from looking at what those nodes do, a lot of them are kind of muddled at best. That's the nicest way I can put it. Like literal thorns appearing on the skin of the bear and having it become a caster is kind of interesting mechanically, but it just looks weird. So getting something that fits thematically in order to bring that a similar fantasy, I think, would be a lot more appropriate. Sabretooth has too much of its tree devoted to, as a percentage, too much of its tree devoted to cold stuff. So if you don't want to go cold or do want to go cold, it basically dictates like everything you're doing in that tree. It becomes sort of a one decision tree, a one depth binary tree. Speaking of puddles, is Volatile Reversal yeeting me into void puddles at the side of the room a feature or a bug? I mean, it's it's volatile. It does what it says it does. Oh, Zariel gifted Kane a sub. Nice. 237 subs to the channel. That's huge. That is a large number of gifted subs. Thank you very much. It's neat that it tracks that. Oh, and Master Sword! I missed you 13 months. Congratulations. Thank you very much. You've been here for quite a while. Here, I've got my Master Sword just for you. This is you. Giving you a nice little pat. Thank you. Still gotta hang that thing up. Gonna put it behind the shield on the wall. Behind this shield. Probably get a lot of this, but is multiplayer out yet, or is it close if not? You can put exclamation mark multiplayer in chat, and it will give you all the most up-to-date information about multiplayer. It is not out yet to everyone. It is out to some people. We've got a small group of community testers that help us prepare patches for patches, so we release stuff a little bit early to them. They are testing it. We've just wrapped up our second test with them. Went really well. Or we're just wrapping it up. Maybe it's not wrapped up yet.
Not happening.
But yeah, it's moving. It's moving along. It's coming. It's doing good. I don't really have much to say about it. It's just, you know, stuff's working. We're still making stuff. It's not ready to be released. I'm sure if they were able to answer the questions, you ask the CTs if we should release it, they would probably tell you no. Erwin has gifted has resubbed for 6 months in a row. Thank you very much. We're halfway to a year. Lovely. What am I doing? I'm just killing things till I find this stuff. I'm not doing enough damage. That is definitely apparent. Hey. When does a joke become a dad joke? When the punchline becomes apparent. I'm sure no one's ever heard that joke before. Good old joke number 4731. Repost not allowed. What is your opinion on RNG drops compared to deterministic rewards? For example, would it be too far-fetched if there was a way to add extra LP to your uniques? Oh, I should have not looked away. I knew it was dangerous. Thank you very much, Weird, for gifting a bunch of subs to the channel. In regard at the same time as my failure. It looks like 5 or 6. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 subs. Thank you very much. Flippin' brilliant. Congrats, we got one of those. Is he pulling out Notepad++? I use Sublime Text. Thank you very much. I only code in Microsoft Word. I don't. That'd be awful. That would be truly the most terrible thing of all time. No, I use Visual Studio day to day, and I do use Sublime Text sometimes. Sorry, back to Thamine's question about RNG versus deterministic rewards for things, and suggesting that if there was a way to add extra LP to your uniques, even if it took insane amounts of playtime, but it would still be there as a carrot on the stick tangible goal. I think that it's so it's a big balance thing, and it shifts all the time. And as soon as you add, even if you have a system where the things that are RNG and the things that are deterministic are in a good balance, and you add something else over here that seems unrelated, it affects it. And it's a very big ecosystem that is that is affected by things that don't seem like they're connected. And I think sometimes it's difficult to see reasons why we don't do things. It's like, well, like, oh, you should, like, obviously we should have this thing, and it's difficult to see the whole system as a whole. And I frequently forget about things when trying to look at the system as a whole to do things like this. Like that's an easy thing to like have problems with. And I think one thing that I like to look at is by giving something a tangible, like, set amount of time that something takes, and you're guaranteed to get it, something you're working towards, and it's just going to happen, can be a really positive thing to have. But one of the big downsides to it, or maybe not downside, one of the things that it just does, and can be a downside in context of other things, is that it assigns a value of time to a specific item. And it says, like, and it makes it pretty clear what that time is. And it sometimes gives that expectation that that's what that time is. And sometimes, say there's 2 ways to get something. And one way, it's pretty clear that you're going to get it in, let's say 100 hours. Like, you put in 100 hours, you're going to get it. And then let's say there's an RNG way to get that same thing. And on average, if you focus on the RNG way, it's going to take you, let's say, 75 hours. And these numbers might seem like weird, but I'm trying to use roundish numbers to make this easier to explain, because I'll get lost in my numbers if I don't. So let's say it'll take 75 hours to get this thing on average through an RNG system. And that's kind of calculated and known by the community. Everyone sort of has figured roughly that out. Because there's this benchmark of, well, I know I can get it at 100 hours, or I can, or a 75-hour system, and it I'm explaining. I realized halfway through this explanation that it is a terrible way to explain this. Basically, people are bad at making estimations for time investments on things when it's an RNG system, and comparing that to a less RNG based system is, people are bad at that as well. And I don't mean anyone specific. I am terrible at it myself. It's just humans are bad at recognizing random systems and estimating for themselves how long things should take. I need to turn a fan on. It is cooking in here. Okay. We've really intentionally designed the legendary potential system, the legendary system in general, to act as sort of a bonus endgame system. So it's a tail on a complete item system. So you like most content, most content is designed so that with a well-designed build, and something that's in the higher power levels of builds out there, you should be able to complete all the major content. And I want to put a caveat, like a little asterisk there, that's saying that like 10,000 corruption monos is not normal content, so to speak. So I guess we use T4 Julra as an example. You should be able to complete T4 Julra without legendary items for the most part. On like if you've got a solid build and no legendary items, you should probably be able to do it. And I know there are builds out there that can't do it, and I hate using a specific boss fight as a benchmark for that, because it creates the is this viable discussion to pop up. But pretending that doesn't exist for a moment, I think that one of the main reasons we don't have a deterministic way to put legendary potential on an item is that we want it to be sort of this extra tail to the system, not a perceived mandatory part of the system. And on top of that, if there is a way to add legendary potential to an item, it throws off the balance of the way legendary potential brings up lower level uniques. That's one of the main things that the system does, is it brings up lower level uniques. So if we have a way to slap legendary potential on something like Ravenous Void, that's a completely different thing than the ability to slap legendary potential on Hammer of Laurent, or Hammer of Laurent, or however you pronounce it. But so we then have to put a variable time on getting this legendary potential investment onto these items relative to what the item that you're putting it on is. And the system becomes very complex. We have designed something out like this when we were looking at the legendary potential system in the first place. We did design something that would do basically this. And we decided that it was A, not positive overall, and B, too complicated. Very long-winded, rambly answer, and I know I kind of backtracked on the stuff I said there. I'm sorry about that. Hopefully that gave you a little insight into it. Marishard has several 67-point nodes. Always more interesting to hear why, though. Thanks. Yep. We didn't have our systems in place at that point. It's a really old tree. That's why. We were still experimenting. We were still learning. We still are. But we post making that tree, quite a ways after making that tree actually, we built a bunch of tools to like give us statistics and check for numbers on trees. So it checks the total number of nodes, the total number of points investable in the entirety of the tree, and gives an average number of points per node, because those two numbers give that their number. It gives a total number of connections like total number of just connections. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and a total number of connection point requirements, and then gives the average for that as well, because that the first two numbers give you the third number. And we try and get each one of those values into, and the total number of nodes, I don't know if I said that. We try and get all of those values into a roughly similar-ish range. And I say roughly similar-ish because some trees need a few longer threads that ends up with less connections. Some trees need to have a lot of connections. Some trees need to have a little more nodes. Like you'll notice that Summon Skeleton, I think, has one of the highest nodes in the game still. Probably in the 35 node range. But you usually try and keep between 28 and 32 total nodes. And most of them are in that range. Any plans to add fire acid flask? Oh, sorry, the 6 to 7 point nodes. Why don't we want that? 5 points in a single node is a quarter of that skill tree's allocation. That's 25%. It's a lot. Even 5 is a big number. And we try and do less and less 5s because it is such a big number. And I know you get plus skills and it can be 20% instead of 25%, but still 20 to 25% of a tree on a single node is a lot. When that number gets up to 7, 8, it becomes an even higher number. You get like 30% of a single tree on a single node. That's insane. Some like 8 point nodes, I think, in Bear. Any plans for fire acid flask changes? Would love some Greek fire effect to it. Like if VFX changes, I don't know off the top of my head if there are. Acid flask is I think a pretty solid tree overall. And this is one of the things, like there's lots of things that can be improved all over the place, and we do pick out sometimes and improve individual things for them. But quite often when we're looking at what do we work on next, it's what's the worst thing? Let's make that better. Or where's the biggest hole in content that we need to fill? Where's the what can we benefit? What would benefit from our time the most? Because we really are looking to get to launch as soon as we can, and a lot of what we do, when we decide to work on specific things, the consideration primarily is what gets us to launch the fastest and in the best state possible. I really need to fix my build. I was going to do it this week, and I just did not have time. There's those subs from everywhere. Thank you very much. Again. What happened to the unreleased classes? Don't forget to put at Last Epoch game in the question if you want me to answer it. They are still unreleased. We're still working on them. They're in early development. A lot of the people that are going to work on them are people that work a lot day-to-day on multiplayer stuff, which is what we're working on currently, more focused, so we don't have time to work on those yet. Once multiplayer is in more of a test it and bug fixing state rather than a feature implementation state, we'll be hopping back over onto skills more heavily, and that's when those will get created. Come on now, latex or bust. Oh, it took me until my 4th year to actually get a hold of latex, and like not get a hold of it, but like wrap my head around it and use it effectively. And by that point, it actually was great. If no one's used latex before, it's basically like Word for nerds. And it is great, but it's not user friendly at all. It's like you sit down to learn Photoshop and you're like, this sucks because I can't do anything. And then a year later, you're like, of using it every day, it's the best thing ever because you've learned how to use it. But the thought of Word needing a year-long learning curve to even be competent with it is insane. But it's worth it. Latex is great. People are bad at math and scales, nothing new. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Hello, glad you're here. Thank God it's Friday. Hello, Master Sword, glad you're here too. I'm a little bit behind, I think. No, maybe not behind. Just to expand I enjoyed your discussion with Lizard the other week. If I may ask, what were your major takeaways from that discussion? I haven't. So I wrote up what I talked about with him. We haven't, as a group, talked about that discussion at all yet. We had it scheduled for yesterday, and we pushed that meeting, so it'll probably be next week before we actually talk about anything that was there at all. I think we get a ton of amazing feedback from a lot of people, like straight away, and it's hard to pick out what's actionable and what's not. And I mean, a lot of the things that come in feedback, so much of the stuff we get in feedback, it's already on a list of like, we've got to do this. We've really got to get to this, and this, and we get a whole huge feedback from someone, and like a lot of the little things that are there are already on that list, and yeah, so like, so that almost every time there's a huge amount of overlap there, and I think that Lizard, I don't know if you're here now. There you are. I think Lizard is possibly the most playtime per day, like most play rate right now of anyone, and he sees a lot of things that no one else sees, which is really good insight for a lot of things, and you get a lot of big picture stuff, which is great. I don't have any direct comments to make on what that discussion was about, but if you want to watch it, I'm sure it's up on Lizard's Twitch or something, or rewatch, I don't know. We talked a lot about leveling curve, difficulty curve, I think would be a better way to put it. Difficulty curve stuff. Just to expand on my previous question, ooh, I'm going to have to go look at what your previous question was. Probably just figure it out from the context. What is your opinion on having everything either RNG or everything deterministic by crafting, for example, without player picking between the two? I think that's probably not ideal, to have everything one way or the other. Okay, I shouldn't say that. It depends on the context of the game again, I think. In an ARPG, in a Diablo-like ARPG where there's like really specific things where you're planning for like a multiplayer system, you're planning for an online system, you're planning for like very expansive gameplay with very deep systems, having everything be deterministic or everything be RNG, I think would be a mistake. And I'm like, I was delaying saying that a little bit because I was trying to think of a game that had everything as deterministic or everything as RNG, and I can't think of one. Like Diablo 2 itself has a lot of RNG stuff, but there's some deterministic stuff there too. And there's some semi-deterministic stuff there too. And like you go to Countess and she always drops a rune. Well, almost always drops a rune. Technically possible for her not to, but you know, you go break the forge and there's always a rune that drops, and there's always a perfect to flawless, or two flawless to perfect in a regular gem or something, or whatever the ratio is. And you know, like there are certain things that are deterministic still, but almost the rest of it is deterministic, is random. The deterministic stuff brings a sense of control and the ability to plan, which is really good for people who like to design builds and people who like to really plan things out. Like, the ability to plan is good for people who like to plan. Surprise! I'll be back, Mike, with amazing insights. Back for more at 5. You know, but if there's no way to say like, okay, when I do this, I'm going to get this item at all anywhere in the game, I think there's less room for planning, probably. Four years and I still pronounce latex wrong. It's latex. Profs I had, I'll call it latex. Is this another SQL SQL thing? Lisp anyone? Gross. Haskell. Ugh. Hated Haskell. You do some really cool stuff in some of these like obscure languages. There was I took a class that was just it's just called programming languages. Um, weird class. The whole grade consisted of 4 6-hour 8-person team exams. So you'd have a 6-hour exam and you take it in a team of 8 people, and there was 4 of those. And that was your whole grade. How weird is that? And you were allowed to use any resources you wanted in those 6 hours. So like, you got the question, 6 hours later you had to hand in your answers. It was always a big essay, and any resources, anything goes. You could be in the same room as each other. You didn't have to be. We always just grabbed a classroom and did it all together. And like one of the questions was on Python, and we contacted the creator of Python to ask him, and he's like, the answer we got was hilarious. It was when would you do this operation in Python, or how would you do this operation in Python? And his answer was like, you would never do that in Python. That's stupid. And we quoted him in the exam. It was great. It was cool that he replied in like just a couple hours. Yeah. Outside of gear uniques, has there been discussion on how or if skill trees will evolve to help keep build diversity going? There seems to be some skills that the skill point investment on them are largely static for large parts of builds. These most often are utility defensive skills, but there are some offensive skills as well. Yeah, I think that's just the skill could be designed better. So yeah, there's sometimes there's knock-on effects from like one skill getting a change that adds to another. I'm sure there'll be other systems in the future that integrate into skills that aren't there now. Sometimes there's things that seem unrelated that will affect how skills are used. So maybe we add in maybe there's a skill, let's say Lightning Blast, and the only way to play Lightning Blast was to convert it to cold. It's just the best way to play Lightning Blast. But then suddenly we release content where just lightning damage is unbelievably useful, and suddenly the discussion of whether to use Lightning Blast in cold form or lightning form becomes a debate just from changing the content that's available and not even changing the skill itself. Then there's other effects where it's like you can get a unique, let's say a unique for Volcanic Orb, extending our Lightning Blast example here. Let's say there was a unique for Volcanic Orb that said like every time you use a differently elemented skill, it gets 400% more cold damage. And so suddenly you don't want to use your Lightning Blast as cold because you need to have it be lightning instead to trigger that. So you can see how there's things that aren't even in the skill tree or even directly interacting with skill trees in a new way that can affect it. And I guess my point is that those skills are still going to get changes, and largely it's difficult to tell that that's going to happen with a skill tree until you all get it in your hands, and sometimes discover things that we didn't expect, or there's all sorts of reasons that like a specific skill's meta can get stale, I guess. And yeah, it's not ideal, and we do like to mix it up. And ooh, what's this? I mean, equipped dagger and bow hit. It's unfortunate. Would it be good even for a whatever? Whatever. Excuse me. Oh, there's 2 of them back to back. That's funny. And looking back at this question, sorry, the question was, has there been discussion on? And yeah, the answer is yes, there has been discussion on this. weird, random but nudgeable chances. And what I love in D2, yeah, the fact that your best drop wasn't from the top boss, but was very interesting. Yeah, I mean, more high runes drop from random mobs than from anywhere else in the game. It's just a volume thing. And yeah, being able to, so there's a lot of things that happen there too, where you have to like know what's droppable where, and they use loot tables very differently than we do. Like how there's 3 items in the game that are only droppable by 2 things in the entire game, you know, stuff like that. Is there a system to skip the campaign for alt characters in Last Epoch? Yes, and if not, why not? As we especially see PoE, it's a highly regressive feature. And so there's not a system to just skip the whole thing at the moment. And I can go into why there's not a system to skip the whole thing. And why we've implemented it the way we have. I'll try and do a little bit briefly, because I think we've talked about this a few times on stream. The short answer is, the campaign is a tutorial for your character, and having something there before you get into more difficult content is important for us to have the total experience for character being engaging and fun, and having building a connection there too. So it's not just about learning the character, but also, you know, having a, like, this is my, instead of it just being a, I made a, you know, like, this is my puncture hail of arrows bow rogue, not I made a puncture hail bow rogue.
You have to drop something.
And having that distinction in language that you're feeling as playing the character, I think, is important. What we do is we have campaign skips. So we have specific points in the campaign where you can skip content. And the goal is to have a lot more of these than is possible to be done on a single character, and also to not have these be doable on the first character of any season or league. So part of that is we don't want to give brand new characters the opportunity to get to end game and be completely lost. So the campaign does act as a learning curve for them, for those players that are going through. And if you just dump them into end game with a, like, you give them a starting set of end game gear, and you're just like, or you just slap them in the arena for 60 levels, and they just power level it quick or something like that. You know, it's. I think that would be a very boring. To just do the arena for 60 levels or something, for every character, and then if you just give someone a character that is level 60 and don't make them do anything for it, that this is a huge topic. I don't want to go too deep. I'm trying to like rein in what I'm saying to not ramble a whole bunch here, but that experience is important. That journey is important. It's not just about getting to level 60. It's about getting to level 60 on that character and trying out the skills along the way. And that leveling progression for each class archetype and each mastery is something that we do try and curate, something that we do try to have be an interesting thing. Oh, there's something that's pretty nice. Oh, Willity. Yeah, we'll take that one. We'll look at it later. It's fine. I can't remember where I was going. I'm sorry. I lost my train of thought. I got a ticket for the next one, though. All aboard. All right, train of thought. Leaving the station. So the skips that we do have, you collect a key on one character. And these are the dungeons that are the skips. So this is Temporal Sanctum. This lets you skip Chapter 5? This is the entrance right here. Unless you skip a fair bit of content, actually. And there's 2 other skips as well. Yeah, so and sometimes we change the campaign, and sometimes we change the what happens as you level. So we've set it up in the way such a way that at the start of a league, at the start of a season or whatever, start of a cycle, the first character plays the campaign, and then after that, subsequent characters can, as you have gear in your stash that you are able to make them be better, and you have keys that you can transfer to them. You can jump in and skip sections of the campaign and level up a little bit faster. And it's designed, the system as a whole is designed as such that once we have enough of these, you'll be starting a new character and say like, okay, my character is really good at dungeons 1, 5, 7, and 9, and so I'll do those ones, but I'm going to skip dungeons 2, 3, or whatever it was because they overlap. So here's the timeline I usually draw. And so we've got the line, and here's dungeon 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But this dungeon takes you to this point. Oh my goodness, this is laggy. And this dungeon takes you to this point. Wow, this is crazy. And so if you take this dungeon, you can't access the start of this dungeon here. And maybe this one is like super far and takes you to here. And if you take this one, it like precludes you from getting into either one of these. But both of these will just take you right to the end, or something like that. You know. And then there's also quests along the way that you need to get to unlock the full potential of your character. So skill points and passive points are and idle unlock slots. And so you end up with, I think what'll be really cool is there'll be some pathing problems that'll happen, and it's kind of similar to things that happen in speedrunning communities where people route a game for like making it optimal. And I think there'll be like, if eventually, what I hope will happen, I expect will happen, is people will come up with like, okay, you're leveling a paladin, this is the best route to take. Oh, you're leveling a rogue in general, this is the best route to take because there's this one dungeon that, it's really easy if you can crit consistently, and rogues are really good at critting. So, take a rogue in there and it makes it really easy. But it has like super high resistance to dots, and maybe so if you're playing a dot necromancer or something, or like it's really good at killing minions. So if you have like if you're a necromancer with a bunch of minions, it's gonna be a bad time. So you don't take that one on a necromancer, and you go to this other one instead that's really useful to have a bunch of minions. So I think that'll help keep the campaign a little bit fresh, and a little bit dynamic, while still being a good tool for creating a new character. We're playing an RPG. Like, we want this to be a character that you're having some attachment to. This is a character that you're leveling up, and it's growing with you as you play, and these things, and all these are things that we keep in mind as we're creating these systems.
Not happening.
Come on. Can't wait till we're able to actually see all of the stacks instead of just 15 plus. We've got it on dev builds right now. It's so nice. All right, we're in a rambly mood today. I feel like it's good though. I like it. It's fun. I was assigned Haskell for a coding project that was 30% of your grade and had to meet certain complexity requirements. My mate next to me got Python. I hope the prof realized the discrepancy there and took that into account when grading it. I suspect they did. I hope they would. For your sake, I hope they would. If you don't pronounce SQL as SQL or squirrel, I don't even know what you're doing with your life. I intentionally said SQL because I saw the other two down there, by the way. I haven't used SQL. um, in a long time. Took a few database classes, but you know, um, it's such a funny argument that pops up all the time. I thought the argument was between SQL and SQL. Squirrel I've heard, but I thought it was just a joke. Maybe that's a joke you're making. Was that a gent towards volatile lightning orb? Asking for a friend? Nope. Spike! Spike! Or speak! I have Spike. Like the dramatic Spike. Has subbed! Thank you very much! Welcome to the party! What percentage of players have found the secret B level? I like it's low enough that we round it down to 0 at this point. Where do you think your game places itself in the market? In market where it will soon fight PoE2 and D4. I think that there's so we don't look at it that way really. I don't think there's like yes, there's only so much time everyone has, and so people will split their time or pick one of them to play type thing. And yeah, of course we want people to play our game as much as possible, but I don't think it's a fight so much. Because like I play more than one action RPG right now myself, and like more than one other than Last Epoch as well. Because I have fun with them. It's my jam, and but yeah, I think there's room for everyone in the market, so to speak. But I don't know. I what's the exact question? Where do you think your game places itself in the market? I feel like we have so a lot of it is lots of similarities and differences between all of them. It's hard to draw a lot of conclusions with D4 because it's not out yet. We know a lot of things, but it's not it's not out, so we don't know everything. And same with PoE2, and like we don't know everything for Last Epoch either. Nothing's finished yet. So with all those games in development, it's hard to say. It's really interesting because PoE2 and D4 both have very large pre-existing fan bases. And I think there's like enough similarities and enough distinctions that people will be able to find things that are fun about all of the different games that they could play. Man, I've said literally nothing after the last like 2 minutes of talking. I don't have a good answer for you, I'm sorry. I'm like stalling for time trying to think of a good answer, and I got nothing really as far as details. It's a lot of stuff that we talk about that I like don't feel comfortable talking about on stream really. You get into businessy stuff. Design space, I guess we could talk about it a little bit more. It's again hard because I haven't played Diablo 4. Oh, I want to so bad. I think we'll likely be, as far as a complexity level, we'll probably be in between PoE2 and D4. As far as depth goes, I hope we're closer to... I think a game will be in between the two, but I think we'll be closer to PoE2 as far as depth is concerned. But I mean, this is so much speculation that I can't really speak with confidence to it. So you're not a fan of WoW's instant boost. I think WoW is a different genre. And I think the grind from 1 to whatever max level is now is so different in WoW than it is to Last Epoch. Like, you can get, like, you should ask Lizard. Lizard, if you're here, how long does it take you to get from 1 to... like new character to Monolith, how long does that take you? And I know it's an extreme example, or anyone here that has done this enough to know that number. How long does it take you? And even double that number, and I bet it's still nowhere near the fastest person in WoW type thing, So I think it's a little different in that case. And then as well, on top of that, WoW has mechanics where they lock you out of content on a weekly basis. So having more characters, and and it's been a while, so I'm talking about WoW really as if I'm going to talk WoW as an expert, like as a rating server first content pushing tryhard in WoW, that was Wrath was the last time I did that. So that's where these references are coming from for the most part. So if I say something wrong with regards to current WoW, I'm sorry. But with raid lockouts, getting an extra character to max level means you're able to do more endgame content per week. So I think that having though, and with how much longer it takes to get to endgame, and with the raid lockout system, I think that it's much more appropriate to have boosts in that game than it is in an ARPG like this. Having said that, no, I'm not a huge fan of it. The story skipping key thing sounds neat. Any potential some NPCs have slightly differing dialogue based on what was skipped? That's something we could do. I think it's something that's really cool. There's nothing in there right now. There are some storylines and dialogues, secrets that are hidden in the dungeon, so you get different experiences that way, which is cool. What is the progress share for multiplayer for waypoints, quests, unlocks like empower idea for co-op environment? Host gets progress, entire party boosts the thing. I can't give you details on exactly how that's working yet, because it is still not finalized. We do have a system in place that we're quite happy with, but it could change. Whoa! Yeah, was not paying attention really, and I paid the price. That's what happens. I need to get better gear because my gear sucks. Alright, are monoliths largely finished and largely resemble what they will be at 1.0, or there's still possibility conversion for changes to things like their pacing? I think there could be yes and yes to an or question, I think that the main mechanics that we'll see in Monolith at 1.0 will look very similar to what you're seeing now. And just to clarify that a little bit, that doesn't mean that won't change as we go forward past 1.0, because 1.0 is really just a benchmark that we can say, here is a game that we are proud to say is a product that we can release as, like, here's a game, it's fun, it's awesome, we're going to build on this now, because this game is fun and awesome, and we can make it so much more fun and so much more awesomer. Yeah, awesomer. And so we'll still be... there'll still be a lot of changes post-launch to what it is. But yeah, right now what you're seeing will be the core functionality for the monolith. But like, stuff's going to get added to it. Pacing can change with very little. Like, you do make really small changes to the monolith that'll have huge pacing implications. So yes, it's largely the same, but pacing could change a lot. I don't know yet. Like, that's one of the things that Lizard and I were talking about a lot. Yeah. So yes. Did the volume get really loud all of a sudden? It's sequel, not sequel. I know a handful of people who all say buying as soon as multiplayer comes out. Yeah, I see that a lot. We see this all the time. I feel like you gotta grow a lot as soon as it's out. Yeah, I think that we'll see a pretty substantial player base spike when multiplayer comes out. And that's part of the reason why that experience needs to be very solid. if we release and let's say our player base triples. Multiplayer comes out, the player base triples. Like, I'm literally making that number up off the top of my head. Please do not take that as something people have considered or anything like that. Let's just, for example, let's say that. So I'm going to use that number to make a point in a second. Let's say that, and let's say multiplayer has horrible lag and it's basically unplayable, and you can't log in forever, and item duping is rampant, and like all these common early multiplayer bugs happen. Then 2/3 of our player base, all they know as experience for the game is all these problems. Which is a huge problem. And so you only get one shot at a first impression, and for a lot of people, that first impression is going to be when multiplayer comes out. So we need to make sure it is solid. Now, when I say that, I know a lot of people go, yes, but if you spend too long, you'll lose everyone's interest, and yeah, we definitely know that. So we are. That's why we're spending so much time working on it and so much energy working on it. Is we know we have to get it out as soon as possible, and we know it has to be awesome. So, yeah. Hello. I was gonna say your name, and then I realized I didn't know how to pronounce it. Arutha Emra. Love it. 3 to 4 hours spending on the character. Yeah. Okay. So, Lizard 2 hours to mono no speed run. So yeah, let's say it's 5 hours. Let's bump those numbers up to 10 hours for an early thing. You can not get anywhere near endgame in 10 hours in WoW. Like, not even remotely close to 10 hours in WoW. Like, not even like scratching the surface of it in 10 hours of WoW. And maybe this comes from I haven't leveled a character in WoW since Wrath, but from what I remember, my first time leveling a character in WoW, it was actually still Burning Crusade. It took me months. I didn't know what I was doing. I was a kid and everything, but so that was months. It's hundreds of hours. So I think the level skip stuff there is, it's an inappropriate comparison to make, I think. That's a good point someone just made. It's an old game with need for special circumstances, and yeah, I think that's a good point. There's a lot of things that happen in games where where you get problems that need to be solved, and those problems wouldn't exist in the original release, and they you get design debt. Is that the same thing as technical debt, but for game design systems? I should start picking out bows here. Let's highlight some bows. Oh. We're not doing poison. We're doing physical. We've been pretty heavily physical. Still. I personally am a player who min-maxes and have played LE for almost 1,000 hours. That's a lot. Cool. I find the more I play the game, the more I find that the opinions Lizard has in the game are 99% spot on. Not everyone is a min-maxer, but I feel like a large volume of the LE player base generally agrees with Lizard's findings, opinions. Just wanted to point that out. Yeah, I think it's... I think there's a lot of, as well, things you might not realize on your own, and you hear someone say it, and it makes a lot of sense, and you go, oh yeah, wow, that does happen. I think Lizard is good at pointing things out, good at drawing conclusions from experiences. That's a good way to say it. But yeah, we know that there's different player types in the game, and we try to create systems. Sometimes we'll make systems specifically for what we consider one type of player or another. And like, so we know that there are some people that really hate arenas. That's part of the reason that it says on the Monolith, when you're going into an Echo, it actually says arena in the name. And part of the reason for that is because we got a bunch of feedback at one point that there's some people that just don't like playing arenas. And so yeah, we try to make considerations for different types of players, and we take that into account when we're building systems. It's been a while. You know what? I got a little teaser for you here. Ooh, that's neat. I wonder what that is. Let's answer a question while that's up on screen. Are there any intention to change keys requirements in monoliths to reward? Sorry. Sorry. Are there any intention to change key rewards in the monolith to all keys instead of just arena keys? If no, can you explain why? We don't have any plans right now for it. However, we haven't really had the design discussion about that yet. So it's not we plan to not have plans for it, or we plan to have plans for it. It's just we don't have any plans one way or the other because we haven't talked about it yet. Plan. Answer. I'm sure they've confirmed it will. Oh, that's League. Sorry, that's a different question. Okay, yeah, no. Yes, I missed the question about... yes, it was highlighted first time. Yes, we will have Leagues. The plan is to call them cycles right now. Yeah. Yes, I am intentionally pronouncing sequel wrong. Your refusal to pronounce squeal correctly makes me squeal. Sequel. Now I don't even know what it is. What is this? To be fair, there's been every launch of every game over the past 10 years. No pressure. Thanks. Yeah, no pressure. Oh god. Oh god. To be fair, yeah, it takes you a week tops nowadays. It ain't no wrath no more. Okay, it's a little different apparently. Still, a week is very different than hours. Like, I don't know. That was part of the charm for. I probably shouldn't talk so much about WoW here, but that was part of the charm for me. Of WoW. I actually yeah, there was months leveling, but I kind of enjoyed that. It was, and yeah, a lot of people say it's just a tutorial, and first time I see doing that level awesome, and the 8th time I leveled a character was sucked. The Shaman and Paladin that I leveled were just, it was a slog to do. You know, they both leveled really nicely. But I'd already done Warlock, a Death Knight. No, Death Knights don't really count. Warlock, Death Knight, Shaman, Paladin, Priest, Druid, Warrior. Yeah. Warlock was my favorite. Always will be. I played a Warlock, and my roommate played Shadow Priest for the most part. And so we always had who can do Shadow Dots better competitions. I won. I doubt he's watching. But if he is, I know I'll hear about it. You need to tag. Oh, someone asked the question, didn't tag. Has it been much more complicated taking your single player game and making it multiplayer than just having it multiplayer from the start? Absolutely. It was a horrible idea to do that. We'd never do it again.
Not happening.
If you're gonna make a multiplayer game, make a multiplayer game and then build the systems after that. Don't make a single player game and convert it to multiplayer. That's a well-known thing. And like we've been working on multiplayer systems since the beginning. If you go back to our Kickstarter page and you look at that Kickstarter video, the original Kickstarter video, right at the start, there's multiplayer clips. I know because I made it. I mean, it's awful, and we scrapped literally 100% of everything that made that multiplayer work. But, like, yeah, we've been kind of had that multiplayer idea going for a long time. We try to build for it, but not having it actually in full multiplayer systems caused a lot of problems. Yeah, and we've had to redo a lot of stuff. Don't I dare use that bow, but I like it. It's pretty. Fine, I'll drop it for you. You come pick that up for me, right? Right? It's gone, isn't it? Did I just drop something that people want me to play with? Am I just a noob? Am I terrible? Will the drop rate change with multiplayer? I prefer to play SSF and like the drops now. Yeah, so I had a good. I answered this question recently. I had a really good answer for it. I'm gonna butcher it now, and I'm sorry. We want the drop rate to still feel good and fun for SSF players. I think it is important to sort of have a distinction that it's harder to get things done when you do them on your own. Like that's just a fact, right? Like if there's any sort of collaborative gameplay whatsoever, it's going to be, easier to get things done in a group with friends. Like, it's like real life. It's many hands make light work, that sort of stuff. It's going to be a little bit easier. And we will adjust the balance of the game with that in mind. And we will adjust the balance of balance of like drop rates and item acquisition with SSF players in mind, with multiplayer in mind, with the trading system in mind in general, and we're still developing our trading system with that goal in mind as well. So we're still making tweaks, making changes to it, so that we don't have to take drop rates and push them into the dirt, so that SSF players can still have a good time. All those things are taken into account. And we know a lot of people, even when there are multiplayer systems, like for a lot of people, half the fun of multiplayer is playing solo and being able to interact with people for very specific things. Like you play solo 99% of the time, and a friend shows up and you rush them, or you get help from a friend to do a boss or something like that. And sometimes the like multiplayer elements of ARPGs ends up surprisingly similar to games like Elden Ring, where you're largely solo, and then every once in a while you get a friend for helping kill a boss or something like that, or PvP. And I think I just I'm so tempted to just like keep calling it SQL or SQL just to mess with you. I'll call it Squeal for you. How about that? Is that okay? Sorry. What was I going on about multiplayer drops and everything? Yeah, like we want SSF to still be fun, and we want multiplayer to be fun, and a lot of that has to do with drop rates and item acquisition and everything. So we're still fleshing out a lot of those details, but yes, it'll be great. Don't worry. And if it's not great and you don't like it, leave feedback in our Discord, on the forums, on Reddit, on whatever your favorite platform is, and we'll still pay attention to that. And we'll still make changes to the game based on that feedback that we get from people. I like to think that we're really good at responding to feedback. If not always, like, when feedback shows up, post a reply in the thread to that feedback, but when I say responding to feedback as a whole, taking that feedback in and using it to make the game better overall. That's one of our strengths. Eek! I was invited to a barbecue. I was not told to bring anything. I will be the meat instead, apparently. You could have just asked me to bring some burgers. Would have been no problem. Oh, burgers would be so good right now. Cleaned the barbecue last weekend. Whoo, baby, does it shine. Well, not really, but it's clean enough to eat off of. So when with multiplayer in the system, how do you deal with the sort of cache coherence problem of the game clients? Is just server wins or something else? Oh, as you're saying, it's server wins. Period. No matter what, server wins always. There's all sorts of jokes of like, like dealing with a server authoritative system. You don't trust the client. But okay, what about in this? No, you don't trust the client. Yeah. But what about no? You don't trust the client. And when I say client, I mean the game client, not the people client. Your favorite is Warlock? Was it Void focused? Hi, Aaron. How's it going? No, it was Shadow focused. It's completely different. If Warlock is your favorite, why isn't it done yet? Warlock in WoW was my favorite class. Falconer is going to be my favorite class, I think, when it comes out. It's just the one I'm looking forward to the most myself, but it's way too early to tell still. Like I don't know how to put it in perspective. Here's a good perspective. I've never played a Falconer, Warlock, or Runemaster in Last Epoch. That's how far away they are. FPS drops still a big issue. There is no improvements yet. There have been a ton of improvements with FPS in Epoch, and it is one of the major things we're working on right now. Don't forget to put at Last Epoch game in the questions. But yeah, there's tons of improvements that have been happening over the last few years, and that's just going to pick up and increase in pace for sure. Yeah, there's a wonderful tech artist that has been doing some really neat stuff. That is that they've come in. They've been for a little while now. And they've made some really cool tools that are just. It's great. I'm happy, very happy about it. Off topic, but the movie Deliverance is cult. So many references in popular culture comes from it. You got pretty teeth, boy. Did I make a Deliverance reference and I missed it? That made me squeal in delight. Like Ben Affleck there, squeal like a pig, squeal, squeal. Dazed and Confused. On the topic of trading, oh yes, quite indubitably. Where are we? It's like jumping but not jumping. Oh, this is weird. On the topic of trading, yes, Lizard, hello. Normally, trading allows players to get ahead or skip RMT, gear progression. What if LE trading system allowed players to catch up but not get ahead? For example, top players already have 4 LP Falcons, casual guys buy 2 LP Falcons on week 3. Thoughts? How would you how would you be able to determine? Okay, it's interesting. B, how would you determine what the like where that line is on what you can trade? Like, would that have to include like an auction house that inspected like whoever was leading some sort of ladder, what gear they're wearing, and determined what the bar for like high rank and mid rank gear is, and then adapted over the course of the cycle to um, to move that bar up to like change what is tradable. Um, it sounds like an absolute nightmare to balance. Um, my gut reaction is it's too complicated. That's the gut reaction. But I mean it is really interesting. I don't think I've heard anything like that before. Is there a game that does something like that as an example we could look at? Whatever your favorite forum is. You got an IRQ channel? No. We got some BBS systems here, you know? Get some old bulletin boards going. Oh no! Oh no! No way! Sorry. No way! There's an obscure reference. Developing a single-player game for years must be draining, right? Is burnout from that a general issue? I don't think we've seen a lot of burnout really. There's a few people that like have, uh, you know, moved on to other things. It's just like it's because it's a lot of work. Making anything for a long period of time, especially when nothing is really like out and finished. It's difficult to do for a long period of time. But by and large, the majority of the people that are working on the game right now are the same people that were working. Like, I shouldn't say that. there's a ton of new people. So that's not what I was about to say. Wasn't really true. But like the vast majority of the people who started working on the game when we started making it are still working on the game now. Very few people have left. And I should rephrase it a little bit. Very few people have left due to like game specific factors. There's been people that have left due to like personal reasons. Can't say any of them without being inappropriate to say. I'm like trying to think of an example of something, and I'm like, that's just a can of worms. I'm not gonna give an example. It is difficult to work on one thing for a really long time, and you do things to keep it interesting. You change responsibilities. You like you shake things up in different ways. There's all sorts of stuff you do to like keep it interesting, keep it fun. I think it helps because for a lot of us, this started as a passion project. Like the first year that a lot of people worked on this was like there was quite a few of us in the first year that no one made anything. It was just us evenings and weekends being like, I wonder if we can make this a thing. Apparently we can. All right. Isn't clean enough to eat off of a bare minimum for barbecue? Yeah, it is. That's why I got it there. You know, bust out the pressure washer. There's no mold. There was nothing living in there. You know, you gotta get the barbecue going for the summer. Pressure washer does the trick real well. I was just like imagining someone taking their like barbecue to like one of those like wand car wash things at the like at a gas station, just rolling it up. uh, no, but I seem confused about yours in chat. What did I do? Anyone can lie to the server if it trusts clients. Well, not anyone, but it will happen. Um, yeah, I mean, people can lie. Clients can lie to the server, yes, and the server will check to see if if the thing they're lying about is possible. So, like, I don't know what the client might say, like, I'm gonna place this item in this slot or something like that, and the server goes, no, you can't do that. Too bad. Even if your client is like, no, there's an item in that slot, the server will go, but there isn't. You know? The only things that like the client has control over, I guess, are the like the assets that are used to represent things on screen. So I guess if you like change the color of this texture from red to purple, health would show up purple. But yeah. Is there going to be a limit for how many times someone can enter a monolith while playing in groups? I don't think so. And also, if someone clears the monolith while everyone else dies, do they all still get the loot? Details on exactly how that's going to work will be published all together at once. Sorry, no info yet. Are there things are things like DLSS and FSR considered to be implemented to help with performance? I rarely see them in ARPGs, to be honest. A lot of those things require engine upgrades, so not yet. No, about the trade system, just shower thought could be based on items people don't pick up or handmade by devs. We want this to be accessible, basically. Yeah. It's an interesting idea, Lizard. I don't think that's implementable by 1.0. We need to have a trade system in place by 1.0, so very unlikely. But I do think it's really cool. Joke's on you, my telnet is one commando, eh? Will LE ever have a battle pass? I don't know. Will I ever learn to speak Spanish fluently? Maybe. I don't have a good answer. Sorry. It's possible. The term battle pass is interesting because it can mean a lot of different things, and there's a lot of ways to do battle passes that I think are appropriate, and a lot of ways to do battle passes that are not appropriate, and that level of appropriateness changes. Oh, wow! Look at that! Yeah, even a couple decent rolls on there too. That's sweet. Terrible for this character, can't even wear it, but that's cool. All right, it's going in the bank right there. Sorry, battle pass. Yeah, it's different for every game. Like what's appropriate for a battle pass, what's not. Like, is there a sticker price on the game? Is there not? How much is that sticker price? What other sorts of things do you charge for? What does the battle pass include? Is there, like, there's so many different things, and we kind of like to forge our own way with monetization, and as you can see from us doing this kind of weird hybridized system of a like premium game and a like it's kind of a half premium, half freemium style game where there's like, oh, okay, just get out of there, boys and girls. Where there's cosmetic MTX and there's a sticker price, and we've received quite a few very opinionated responses to that system already. But I think what we've done so far has been very fair, and like we'll continue to try and keep the monetization of our game really fair. And I think a battle pass can, if done right, can be an interesting way to expand on that. There hasn't been any discussions on doing anything like that yet. Doesn't mean it won't ever happen or it's impossible, but it's not something we've like planned on yet. So I don't want to say yes or no because I don't know. But if we did it, we do it our own way because we don't do anything conventionally. You make me a squirrel build? Okay, fine. The obvious solution would be to tie down your barbecue set to the truck roof and then hit the car wash. Yeah, like a drive-through car wash. Problem is there's like so many nooks and crannies and you couldn't get everywhere, and you know, focus on certain spots. You just want to go through and give it a general washing. It's the problem with car washes is that it's not designed for like automated car washes. Is they're not designed for your car. They're designed for the general car. And you often don't get a really good wash on your car because it doesn't know that like your back right tire sat in a pool of mud for a week when you were camping last month, and it's all crusted up, but now it needs a really deep clean there. It just knows that generally we clean tires a little bit. Definitely not a real example. Totally just made that up. I guess I should get closer, shouldn't I? Okay. Are you at all worried about botting issues when it comes to multiplayer? Worried, no. Cognizant of, absolutely. Like it's the sort of thing that we're not a huge fan of having botting in the game. We know that it's a very common thing for the style of game. We do keep that as a sort of like fact of life in the. Oh my goodness! No! Oh, okay, come on. Oh, okay, this is bad. I saw all the health potions just to my left, and I was like, shift was just barely off cooldown, was trying to go there. Rolled my hand across the keyboard. Didn't quite get it. Wow. Bots and multiplayer. Yeah, I mean, it's probably gonna happen. We're gonna do stuff to make it not awesome to bot. You know, like. Yeah. Just make a little room here. Let me in, let me in. Part one of the, there's many considerations that went into this, but one of the contributing factors to having a sticker price in the game was to reduce the appeal of botting. If someone's getting banned every, say someone's running a bot to generate RMT somehow, and they're they have to net profit above the cost, the sticker price of the game times the frequency of them getting caught and banned to make it worthwhile to still do it, and that deters RMT botting just having a sticker price a little bit. You know, it's not a solution at all, but it deters it a little bit. So that was part of the reason that we put a sticker price in the game in the first place. It's a pretty small part of the reason, but it was definitely in the conversation. Is there anything else in here I want? I think so. I mean, just bleed is great. I don't really care about armor shred that much, or crit. Just poison, just do more dots. Is that what we do? Just damage over time? I think that's what we do. I should probably look at the build that Reimer gave me. Reimer's like dying. Like, I've got such a great build for you, and you're just putting points in willy-nilly. It's been a while since I made a marksman. Next question. Why do you think games like WoW and Lost Ark have speed hacks if the server should be able to prevent it completely? I think there's a gap in the code somewhere that lets it be possible. Possibly that was a decision that was made to allow like less information to be sent. This is pure speculation here, by the way. But maybe it was a decision that was made to allow less information to be sent back and forth to and from the server, and less processing power handleable on the server, so it would be cheaper to run the servers and more cost effective. And there's some gap that allowed people to exploit it, and they've likely looked at the cost to fix it and what they'd get out of it. They've probably decided that it's just not worth it. Pure speculation. No idea in reality. I am by no means an expert as well, for the record. The client-side texture manipulation was a thing in WoW VGs, causing unfair advantage. Do you expect to be an issue in LE? I think the big difference there is that you can get... no, I don't expect it to be a big issue in LE. Mostly because we don't have a lot of effects that could cause that to be something like that. If that makes any sense. Yeah, like there's not a situation where you're gonna have like a bright pink texture. So I don't actually know what the thing you're referencing is, but I'm assuming it was something along the lines of like instead of having a shimmer or something like that for a stealth, like a rogue that's like just like partially stealth detect or something like that being like difficult to detect, it was just like a bright pink blob and made it way easier to detect stealth or something like that, you know? We don't really have a lot of effects like that, and much less focused around PvP. Like we try to build the game in such a way that there is clarity to the player anyways. And we're not focusing. PvP is not a primary game mode at the moment. I feel like you're sacred of bots, Lizard. Yeah, I think WoW has a bigger emphasis on PvP than we do. So it's a bigger problem there in general. We do also have a few tricks with stuff like that if something's really important. That I won't go into. but they're probably things that were not available to Blizzard's dev team when they were having those problems in WoW. And they may have created to combat them. I think people mostly bought if there is a reason for it, like Paragon or an RMT economy IRL. Most people won't bought if they have no reason for it. Do you guys keep it in mind when designing systems? Yes. So far, I only think the Vault gold farming bots would be a serious issue. Yeah, there's... yes, is the short answer. We do keep that in mind when we're designing systems. Partially as an attempt to make the game just more interesting, because if a bot can play the game easily... there's likely not a lot of on-the-fly decision-making happening, which, I mean, for a lot of people is something that they're interested in, and so we do put those things in the game, but, yeah, it is something that comes into the conversation when we're making new systems. Not super often, really. It's pretty rare, but, you know, we talk about it. Alright, first time chat from Freaky Style. If the server is always right in multiplayer, does that mean there's a lot of rubber banding and desync? I bought D2R a few days ago. On sale after 2 days I stopped playing online and made a new offline character because it ruined my fun. I don't experience much rubber banding at all when I'm playing multiplayer. And I just want to preface what I'm about to say by saying I'm not suggesting you're doing this in D2R at all. Hypothetically, if one were to be manipulating their client in Last Epoch to try and get an advantage, there would be a lot of rubber banding, yes. Because they'd constantly be like, no, I'm faster, and the server would be like, no, you're not. So, like, that could happen there if you were intentionally abusing it. But no, I don't see a bunch of rubber banding at all. Actually, I don't think I see any. Can't remember the last time I saw any. I'm sure it happens. Like, it has to at some point. But I can't think of the last time I saw any. And I'm not ultra close to the servers either, where we typically run the servers. I am most of a continent away. Most of a very large continent away. Hello, just came to say that I really like Last Epoch. It's my favorite hack and slash game as of now. The only thing that bothered me is performance, but I'm sure that you are working on that every single patch. Yes, we are. Good luck. Can't wait for the full release. Thank you very much. Glad you're having fun. The WoW Battleground hack was about turning big obnoxious effects like Hunter Bat into a tiny thing so they could see beyond it. Yeah, okay. While the default setup would be a screen full of Bat, just wondering what your view on it as we go into multiplayer / PvP. I think if people find a way to abuse something like that, we'd be much more inclined to take it more seriously. I mean, now that we've had this conversation, I'll probably go look and see if there's room for it to happen, and we'll probably have it a lot more on the radar type thing. But I don't think there's any major opportunities to gain huge advantages in the primary game modes. And I think this ties back into what Lizard was saying about people bought when there's a reason for it. People do things like that when there's a reason for it. I don't think there's a big reason for it. And yeah, I wasn't right about the exact reason, but what I was saying earlier I think stands because well, there's a big reason for it, you know? It's actually something it's kind of the inverse of that is kind of true of something we've been considering about PvP and why you see interesting what I think is interesting mechanics with regards to it in the Rogue Arena Champion fight, where the arena champion's decoy drops unique items that you can only get by killing the decoy. And I'm realizing that might not be in the game right now, and I didn't just say that. I swear. No. The runes and glyphs that it drops when you kill it. So it's things that don't work in PvP that we're trying to add meta systems to. Just jokes, folks. Don't worry. The meta systems to. Don't okay. Just to be clear, do not go kill the decoy a bajillion times. You won't get a unique item. Okay. Please do not do that. I'm really not trying to waste anyone's time because you will just have a lot of disappointment and it'll suck. Okay. And now I don't know how to convince you of this because I feel like the more I try and tell you that it's not real, people will be like, "Yeah, gem activated all over again." Exactly. There's an actual thing. Go Google it. It's there. Brevik explains exactly what that is. I watched him on stream with his wife talk about that and explained exactly what it was. Anyways, yeah, this is that. It's nothing. Anyways, what am I trying to get at? We have looked at interesting systems to make things that are kind of useless in PvP that are similar. So like, and things will have to get rebalanced for PvP as we go. Anyways. Rubber banding happens occasionally. Oh, okay. Like, Reimer's on a completely different continent, so it probably happens to him a lot more than it does to me.
Easy. Too easy.
Said we'd get a unique from killing decoy. Let's do it, boys! Oh, gosh. The can of worms of which I have now opened shall not be closed. Like such a box before it, Pandora wept. In the context of the latest PoE patch, how does Last Epoch deal? I'll be honest, I've not been paying attention to the last patch from PoE at all. I'm sorry, I've been so busy. How does Last Epoch deal with things like limiting the stacking of different game systems, modifying enemies, as well as on-death effects? We do. I think there's a question in there that I need more information to answer, and I don't know how to answer it. I'm sorry. It was probably something that happened that I missed. That would be good to know about. I just had a really pesky bug. Let's see if we can figure it out. How does Last Epoch deal with things like limiting the stacking of different game systems, modifying enemies, as well as things like on-death effects? So I think that if I'm going to guess what this is about, it's about if you have like an enemy that can have 6 different debuffs on it, but you try and place 10 different debuffs on it, how do we decide which one's on it? That sort of thing? Or like something dies and there's 4 on-death effects, how do we determine what order it goes in? Like, how do you order the stack, so to speak? Usually it'll be in a first-in, first-out system. So if you apply, say there's like 6 dots you apply to something and they all have an different on-death trigger, they'll go in the order that they were applied. The context, I think, is basically that they reworked the rare monster modifiers this patch, and it broke a lot of previous patch content because it wasn't designed with those modifiers in mind. Oh, I'm completely way off. Yeah, I heard about that. I totally forgot about that. Sorry. Yeah, because they pulled a lot of the more generic monster modifiers out and replaced them with more sort of like in-depth ones that have like specific names, I think. This is what happens. I need to pay attention more to this patch, apparently. Added a bunch of, you killed a thing, and now that you're looting it, it will explode in your face. Gotcha. Plus, they added a bunch of new modifiers that combine into some flash speed, ultra hitting, immortal things that completely disable builds. I mean, if we're right at the end of the stream here, I'd love to get in deeper on this. PoE got a bunch of backlash for adding immunities and people raged. Okay, it sounds a little bit like there's just some balancing problems maybe at worst. Is kind of what I'm getting from this. What was the question? Limiting stacking of different game systems, modifying enemies. Okay, so like conflict. Here I actually have an answer for this. We have, I bet PoE does the exact same thing. There's probably just some stuff that needs to be tweaked in this. We have pools of mods that conflict with each other. So there's like the really simple version of this is you look at an item and there's like a prefix and a suffix. Like items directly do this actually. It's the same thing. Items and monster mods are identical really when it comes to this. There's a prefix, there's prefixes and suffixes. Only prefixes go in the prefix pool, only suffixes go in the suffix pool. There's a limited number of prefixes and suffixes that can exist simultaneously, and some prefixes and some suffixes are mutually exclusive, such that you can't put a rogue only prefix on the same item that has a sentinel only prefix on it, because they have to go on rogue or sentinel only bases. But then even more than that, there are some that only will go onto helmets and some that will only go onto relics. And they're once again mutually exclusive that way. So there's different things that limit what items they can go on simultaneously. And monster mods do basically the same thing, where there's certain mods that can appear as prefixes, certain mods that can appear as suffixes, and certain mods that are mutually exclusive with each other. And that's, unfortunately, it's something that needs to be curated on an individual level. When you get a lot of them, like PoE probably has, some can squeak through that cause problems. It's a similar thing that happened to D3 actually. Early on when you would get really deep and there'd be like chaining, walling, arcane enchanted enemies, and you're just like, there's nowhere I can run. You know, like fire chains walling, and you're just like, nah. I almost just flipped off the camera twice. Because that's how I feel about it. Yeah. And they did the exact same system, and it became fine, really. Before I end the stream, put in between 1 and 10. I'm gonna go with 9. Because Gordie Howe, one of the best hockey players to ever live. This month's review or summary coming out soon. I don't know. Hopefully. Everyone just gets into 9 subs to the channel. Thank you very much, Air Weird. That's a great note to go out on. We're a little bit over time. I hope everyone had a ton of fun. Thank you very much. Don't worry about picking PoE as a baseline. That's totally fine. I really should be more in tune with it, but I spend too much time working sometimes. Last thing here. So groups of mods can't go together. Awesome. That completely answers my question. Cool. Yeah. I had a great time. I had a lot of fun. I hope you did too. Thanks for stopping by. Let's go find something to do.